try to think about why it can be good and why it can be bad for the advancement of technology as well as other things. It is supposed to be something of an aid to help kind of take technology to the next level, but sometimes it kind of works in the opposite direction. So here we have an example. Let us take the GIMP as an example. The GIMP is an image editing software program. It let you let's say you like the GIMP, except you would like an automatic color temperature adjustment feature. Okay, so you're basically using the GIMP. I can show you exactly what the GIMP looks like. So we go to graphics, and you can install this later on. When we get to portable applications, I will show you that. So the GIMP is nothing more than image processing software. And I can go to Google and look for an image that I can download. Okay. Now, if I'm looking for an image, I have to be careful because some of the images are copyrighted. Okay, if something is copyrighted, that means I cannot reuse the image in my own material without the explicit permission of whoever owns the copyright, of that image. Okay. But there's another thing that is very close to open source. It's called Creative Commons license. Okay, it is basically the concept of open source, but applied to writing, images, music, and so on and so forth. So basically, it says you can use this material as for free, and then they can put some additional restrictions on that. So we'll go ahead and look at some of these, Creative Commons images, because then I can freely reuse it, anywhere I want. And the Creative Commons logo is this, and we'll just go ahead and take one of these so I can do some processing. Oh, I like this one. So let's pick this one. Okay, so we'll click it, and then we'll go to this website. Looks like a blog. So right click, save image as. Let's do it again. Oh, okay. So we'll save this one as cc.jpg in the downloads folder. Then I can go back to the GIMP, file, open, and then go to that document. So now I have this image in the GIMP. For people who have used Photoshop, this is kind of like open source, free Photoshop. It doesn't have all the features of Photoshop, maybe 80–90% of what Photoshop has to offer. But as far as a casual user is concerned, it has all the tools that I want to use. So let's say I want to make the face, kind of sharpened and everything else blurred. Okay. So I think I have shown you guys this already before, right? Kind of. Okay. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and make. This is going to be very crude. Okay. So I just wanted to do a really quick job here. All right. So there's the head. And after I selected the head, you can see the border is kind of like blinky or crawling. So what I can do now is I can invert the selection. So go to select invert. So now instead of selecting the face, I'm selecting everything else. Then I can go to filters. I can go to blur, and then I can apply some blur to the background, to everything except for the head. Can you guys see a little bit of a blurring effect here?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. And of course I can undo if that's not what I want to do. If I go to blur, I can actually go to some of the other blurring effect, like Gaussian blur, where this is a nice feature. It gives you a preview of what happens when you apply that particular filter. And you can tweak all these settings. Okay. And you can see now I have increased the blurring effect. So let's say this is what I want to do. Click OK, and you can see how the body of Superman is now blurred even more. And then I can go to filter again and select some other tool. Go to color. Okay, go to color. We can go to hue saturation, and then we can just kind of bump the saturation down a little bit, so it's kind of like a muted color. So now you can see how the head really stands out, but the rest of the picture is really still here, except it is blurred, and I adjusted the color saturation so it doesn't really distract the viewer as much. Now this is a really quick job. I know it's not really that professional, but it really shows you what you can do with the GIMP. Now if you have a picture and everything is kind of like a little fuzzy, a little blurred, it has a sharpening tool too. Now the sharpening tool is not a magic tool. It only works on certain types of blurring. Okay, if you have a blurring because the lens has a particular aberration or stuff like that, it can fix it. Now it has. Yep, go ahead.
Being that GIMP is open source.
Yep.
If I understand correctly, someone like us can make modifications to it and then upload it.
Exactly.
Enhances.
Yep. So I can go to transform tools here, and you can also see that I can have alignment tools, cropping tools, rotation tools, and stuff like that. Now the rotation tool is particularly helpful because sometimes when I take pictures, I don't get the horizon right. Okay, so it's always kind of like tilted. I may not be the only person with that problem, but some people also have that problem. So now you can actually just rotate a picture until it looks right. Right there. I know this is not fully aligned either, but let's just say it is. So I click rotate, and now you can see that Superman is coming right at you instead of at an angle. So it has a lot of kind of interesting stuff you can do. When you take a picture of a building, you can see the converging line effect, right? And sometimes it's nice because that's what you want, but sometimes, especially when you're in architecture or in some of the other types of photography, you want the lines to line up, parallel. It also has a tool to fix that. Okay, so you can actually, correct what we call, what is the name of that effect? Keystone. So you can actually fix the keystone effect. Now, when you do something like that, it's actually losing information. So certain parts of the picture will look fuzzier if you start with a low resolution picture to begin with. But with 18 megapixels or more, and the picture was sharp to begin with, it's still usable. Okay, you can still actually use it after the correction. Yep.
To follow up to my previous question, who's to say that you don't do something that makes it worse? Is there a committee or somebody or something that is there like oversight?
That's a good question. It has to do with the distribution in that case. So if I go back to my notes here, because I want to make this make the context reasonable. So getting back to here, I'll address your question. Okay. So getting back to here, if the GIMP is okay. So I'll just focus on this particular sentence. So let's say the GIMP is great, except I want a particular tool to adjust color temperature, and it doesn't have that tool right now. Okay, to adjust the color temperature means if you take a picture in a room with the older light bulbs, everything kind of looks yellowish. Okay, if you take a picture in a room with fluorescent light, things kind of tend to be a little green or kind of to the bluish end. Okay. Now the interesting thing is when you want the picture to go from kind of bluish to a natural color, it is actually making the color cooler. If you want to make it from yellowish color to a natural color, it is actually increasing the color temperature. Because color temperature has to do with the temperature, the color of an object of a particular temperature. In other words, the natural color is called 5,000 Kelvin. And that's the color that molten steel would give when it is heated up to 5,000 degrees Kelvin. Okay, what is considered bluish, especially at night when you look at those high intensity discharge, headlights. Some people put like kind of really bluish light that are extremely annoying. Those are high temperature light. They have a color temperature of 6,500 or 7,000 Kelvin. The normal headlight, the ones that will look kind of yellowish, when during the daylight, during daytime, they look kind of yellowish. The yellowish color is around 3,500 Kelvin because that's the temperature of steel or other objects when they heat it up to 35,000 degrees Kelvin. Okay, so let's say I'm just giving you a little digression here to talk about color temperature and stuff like that. So it is kind of counterintuitive. What we think is cooler is actually hotter and the other way around. So let's say you like the GIMP, except you want to have this feature, but it doesn't have that feature, okay? So what do? Well, you have several options. Now, if you don't have any option, if the GIMP is proprietary, okay? If the GIMP was proprietary, which means it is not open source, and you want to have this feature, let's say we are talking about Photoshop. So if Photoshop has, you have one feature that you want you want Photoshop to have, and it doesn't have it, you can send a request. You can send a feature request to Adobe, and then say, well, I like Photoshop, I pay for that, but I really like to have this feature too, okay? How long would it take, do you think, for that feature to be implemented? It depends, right? If it's a feature that only you find useful, it will never be implemented. If it's a feature that Adobe thinks, well, I guess it really is a great idea. In fact, I'll patent it first, and then we'll implement that feature, right? So your idea will be stolen by Adobe, and then Adobe will get a patent, and then and then they will implement the feature. But the point is, you have no control. Now, because the GIMP is open source, you can download its source code. Now, I know this is not a programming class, and the majority of people of this class do not know how to write programs or how to modify the GIMP. But you know what? If you don't do it yourself, you can always ask a programming wizard buddy to do it, okay? So you can just say, I'll give you, cookies and Mountain Dew. I want you to come over and, finish this feature, right? With Mountain Dew and cookies and cold pizza, programmers will do anything. And you can say you can have 6 hours of game time each day. They're all set. So after this feature is added, at your expense, okay? So you have to spend, boxes of cookies and cases of Mountain Dew on this feature. After this feature is added, you can make your enhanced version available to everybody else. You can say, look at this new feature in the GIMP. I helped make it happen. I originated the idea, and then I paid the programmer to do it. So this is all cool. Now, getting back to your question, okay? Whether the GIMP in the future, when you download the GIMP, whether it will have that feature or not, it depends on whether the GIMP, the organization in charge of the source code, feels that this is something that it wants to incorporate. They can choose not to incorporate your modifications. Now, you can still redistribute your modification to other people for free. Okay, you still have to play by the licensing agreement. But the GIMP, from the quote-unquote the upstream source, this is what we call upstream, which is the authority of distributing the software. If they choose not to include your modification, they have the right to do it. So from there on, you'll be distributing your special branch of the GIMP and not, the main branch.
So this upstream source, they're the originator of GIMP at its infancy. No, they are basically the authority in charge of the official version of the GIMP. And
okay.
Who hired them to make them that authority?
It's self-organized. There's nobody who's hiring anybody else or not. It doesn't have to be like that. It can just be a bunch of people saying that we are all interested in the GIMP and we'll just basically sit down and work on it together. That's how flexible open source projects are. A lot of times it can be one person, and then 2 other people decided, I have been waiting for a new feature, for